WWE is continuing to intensely hint at a big outcome for the Women's World Title match at SummerSlam, so we're going to see what's going on there. We're also going to check out what is up with AJ Lee, with John Cena, and more. Starting things off with the new direction for the Women's World Title that continues to be intensely hinted at by WWE. Liv Morgan has been the Women's World Champion ever since WrestleMania weekend back in April, and she has never defended the title once on television since that date. She finished April with no title defenses, as well as all of May, June, and July without a single televised title defense at all. Just an absolutely insane stat to think about. The first televised title defense for the world title that Liv won back in April is going to be at SummerSlam in the opening days of August. So Liv went over 3 full months without putting her title on the line at all. But now, her first ever title defense is going to be against Sky in this big matchup. Now, fans believe that the storyline between Sky and Morgan hasn't exactly been the strongest. The story so far is that Sky beat Morgan to become Queen of the Ring and earn that opportunity, and then Sky decided to use that opportunity to face Morgan at SummerSlam. And that's it. That's been the story. Hasn't gotten much deeper than that. But what's been happening lately is that they're starting to cross this story over with another Judgment Day storyline that's happening right now, and that is all the drama with Danhausen in the Judgment Day. And one of the very first things that Danhausen did when he first appeared in the WWE earlier this year was curse Dominic Mysterio. And that resulted in Dominic losing the Intercontinental title. So with all of this curse madness and everybody who's been cursed, Dominic was still the very first person to get cursed. And they're revisiting that right now in current day. You had the big matchup at Saturday night's main event where Danhausen was able to defeat JD McDonough. A lot of fans assumed that that was going to be the end of this feud and storyline. But of course, with this regime, a feud never really ends where you think it's going to end. It always drags on for a very long time, and that's what's happening here. Saturday night's main event was not the final chapter of this feud. It will continue into SummerSlam, with the new matchup being Danhausen versus Dominic in a huge match at that event. Danhausen continues to inform all of Judgment Day that they're all basically cursed. He cursed them all again on a recent edition of Raw, and there was even a lot of time dedicated to this topic at the SummerSlam kickoff event where Danhausen emphasized how Liv Morgan was still cursed heading into SummerSlam. Now the curse it's fun, it's goofy, it's purely great entertainment, but it's starting to become a little bit too much when it starts spoiling world title matches and big outcomes ahead of time. This was the big issue that everybody was talking about at Night of Champions, where Liv was cursed by Danhausen just moments away from walking into the Queen of the Ring finals matchup. And the second that happened, all intrigue for Liv possibly winning that match instantly eliminated. It was a clear spoiler that Liv was losing. And a lot of fans didn't really like how that was handled and how they basically spoiled the result of that match before it even started. And they could be doing it again, spoiling the SummerSlam outcome for the Women's World Title match. At the SummerSlam kickoff, Danhausen reminded Liv Morgan and the entire WWE fanbase that Liv Morgan's still cursed heading into her SummerSlam match. So now that WWE and Danhausen have doubled down on the fact that Liv is going to be cursed for her SummerSlam title defense, kind of sounds like this is another spoiler that Liv is going to be dropping the title at SummerSlam. Like we discussed when this happened at Night of Champions, Danhausen's curse is undefeated, and it is heavily protected by the writers. If they say that somebody's cursed, they're going to make sure that that person has a bad time in order to make the curse look real and effective. So, with this new constant emphasis on the fact that Liv is still cursed heading into SummerSlam, the curse could be once again spoiling a match outcome ahead of time. If the curse is not lifted ahead of Liv's title defense at SummerSlam, she's undoubtedly fully losing that match and her title. So, in order to make this match outcome unpredictable again between Morgan and Sky, curse is going to have to be lifted. If it doesn't get lifted, match outcome is basically spoiled by the curse. And there are some good fan theories out there for how things could get fixed and how this curse could get lifted. You know, fans have suggested the idea that the Danhausen versus Dominic match could feature a stipulation that if Dominic wins, the entirety of the Judgment Day gets the curse lifted. If that is the case, and Dominic wins, then the curse gets lifted from Liv Morgan, and she enters that match curse-free. And in so doing, it's going to make the outcome unpredictable again. Now, everything can still go wrong for Liv, and she can still lose the title even after being uncursed, which would be pretty ironic and crazy, but just to walk into that match cursed and letting the curse spoil the outcome, That's what some fans aren't really enjoying. And there are some pretty crazy theories out there as well about how Liv Morgan can lose this SummerSlam match and her title. We can't forget that Stephanie is still out there somewhere. The Judgment Day brutally attacked Stephanie immediately after WrestleMania in order to write her off television. So you just know that Stephanie has to make her return by having a heavy impact on Liv Morgan. So a lot of fans expect Stephanie to appear at SummerSlam during the Women's World title match in order to screw Liv out of the title. It's kind of become an annual tradition for major returns to be taking place at SummerSlam, and having the return of Stephanie at this year's SummerSlam is going to keep that tradition alive for sure. So there's a lot going on here with the Danhausen curse leaking into the Women's World title match, and we're just going to have to see if that match stays affected by the curse, or if they're actually going to free that match from this supernatural element. We'll see. Now, WWE made a massive deal back at Backlash when John Cena made the reveal of the John Cena Classic tournament. They promoted that reveal a lot. They gave it a big moment. They centered it around a rare John Cena appearance. But ever since that day and the vague little details that John Cena gave himself during the reveal, there's been absolutely no word and no news at all about this John Cena Classic. No information, no venue, no date, no further details, just nothing at all. And the silence about that tournament has left fans wondering if the John Cena Classic is even still happening anymore. Well, according to reports, the rumor is that the John Cena Classic is still allegedly set to take place late in the year in Q4. Similar to the time frame where John Cena's last match took place in 2025. Now, there's no way of knowing how true that is because WWE hasn't said a single word about the tournament ever since the reveal. So that's something that'll be worth monitoring. If 2026 comes to a close, though, and the John Cena Classic never takes place, then that will officially be a big red flag about that tournament's future. AJ Lee's WWE status after WrestleMania 42 has been a big mystery over the last few months. It was reported that AJ wasn't expected back in the ring anytime soon. And even AJ herself said goodbye at WrestleMania 42, saying that since she couldn't say goodbye last time, she wanted to say goodbye this time around. And how it's not goodbye forever, but more of a see you down the line type of thing. And now, the new season of WWE Unreal has provided a little bit more context from AJ herself about her own WWE future. In the new season, AJ says that originally her return was supposed to be short, brief, to be able to give her fans the proper goodbye that she didn't get to give them in 2015. But AJ said that she realizes that she's still very good at this, and instead of her original plans, she now wants to keep it going for as long as she can and see where it goes. So, those words from AJ herself is confirmation that she is mentally and physically being pulled back into the pro wrestling universe, and that we're going to see a lot more from her than we were originally supposed to see. So that's really exciting, and it opens up the doors to so many exciting new matchups and even revivals of old feuds as well. AJ, she's been back in the WWE for nearly a year, but that whole time was based around a feud with Becky Lynch. So there is still a lot that AJ hasn't done, and we're going to see what else she gets into. We'll see. But anyway, what are your thoughts on today's stories? Leave your comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe with all notifications on, and make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, guys.